Hey guys, tonight we're trading our phones, stress and coffee jitters for something a little calmer. A slow breath in a misty courtyard, the scent of pine resin, and the soft shuffle of cloth slippers on ancient stone. You've woken up early before, sure, but not like this. This isn't a snooze button morning. This is Tang China, the 8th century, and you're a Buddhist nun. You probably won't survive this, by the way, if you think your life needs noise to mean something. Out here, the loudest thing is your own thoughts, and those are about to get very quiet. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere interesting, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the bell, not because anyone told you to, but because your body knows. It's cold, colder than it should be for spring, and the tiled roof above you creaks like a sleepy elder turning over. Your eyes open slowly. Outside, the sky hasn't committed to dawn. It's a vague shade of navy blue, like a watercolor that lost its confidence. Your bed is a simple wooden platform. No mattress, a straw mat, one folded cloth blanket, and a wooden pillow. Yes, a wooden pillow. You turn your head, and it goes clunk. It's somehow both uncomfortable and exactly what you need. You sit up, stretch. The linen robe you wear is soft from 1,000 washings, dyed the color of old tea. You fold your blanket with precision, place it at the head of your bed, and pad across the room in your socks, made from hemp and leftover humility. The nunnery is carved into the edge of a forested hillside, just outside Chang'an, the capital of the Tang Dynasty. Technically, it's a small temple. Just you, 12 other nuns, and one very territorial goose who guards the grain shed like a reincarnated general. Historians still argue whether small convents like yours were fully autonomous or loosely supervised by local monasteries, but what's clear is this: the rhythm here is your own. You move in silence like everyone else. Silence isn't a rule, it's a choice, because the first words of the day should belong to the sutras, not to small talk about the weather, or that time Sister Anqing ate all the fermented plums again. You walk past the open courtyard. The flagstones are wet with dew. A single plum blossom, defiant and pink, trembles on the edge of a roof tile before letting go. It falls slowly, spinning like a tiny umbrella, and lands in the stone basin that catches rainwater for morning ablutions. You cup your hands, lift the cold water, and rinse your face 3 times. The first to wake your body, the second to settle your thoughts, the third to honor whatever it is that brought you here in the first place. Maybe grief, maybe faith, maybe just a desire for silence in a world too full of drums and debts. Then clang, the morning bell rings. Not a dramatic peal, more like a gong being reminded it has a purpose. One of the older nuns, Sister Daojin, has the honor today. You hear her humming as she moves between chimes. She's tone deaf, but somehow always on rhythm. You smile because that's a thing you're allowed to do here. You enter the main hall, slippers whispering across worn floors. The room smells like cedar incense and faintly of sesame oil from last night's dinner. The altar at the front holds a serene statue of Guanyin Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. She's got 1,000 arms, each holding a different symbol of mercy. One cradles a lotus, another holds a scroll, a third just rests open palm up like an invitation. You bow, not just to the statue, but to the moment, the choice, the whole wide, aching world. Everyone gathers. You sit cross-legged on your mat. A small wooden block clicks 3 times. Chanting begins. Low, soft, monotone, but not robotic. It vibrates in your chest like a cat purring. The Heart Sutra. Short, but profound. You recite from memory. From his emptiness, emptiness is form. Each syllable slides into the next like beads on a string. You feel your thoughts loosen. This is what morning is. Not to-do lists, not caffeine, not urgency, just presence. And you, breathing. When the chanting ends, you rise slowly. The sky outside is now a cool gray. Birds are chirping sparrows mostly. You bow again, then make your way to the dining hall. Time for breakfast. You're already hungry. Not in a dramatic, ravenous way. Just aware of the body. Meals here are simple. Steamed rice, pickled vegetables, maybe a few boiled peanuts if it's a good week. No garlic, no onions too stimulating. You scoop rice into a wooden bowl, add a splash of broth from a large communal pot, and find a seat on the floor near the window. The others file in around you. No one talks. It's not sad, it's peaceful. One of the younger nuns hiccups. A second later, someone slides a clay cup of warm tea her way, no words exchanged. That's how things work here. You eat slowly. Each grain of rice matters. You're not just feeding your body, you're anchoring your mind. You glance out the window. The sky is lighter now. The day is ready, and so are you. By the time you rinse out your wooden bowl and stack it beside the well, the sun has properly arrived. Not in a hurry, mind you. Just leaning gently over the ridgeline, like it also woke slowly and took a moment to stretch. Light spills across the courtyard in angled ribbons, catching the edge of the water basin and turning it briefly to gold. You pull your sleeves up. The linen sticks slightly to your skin. It's going to be a warm day. Today's morning task is garden duty. You grab a woven basket from the shed and head to the terraced hillside where the convent grows most of its food. Tang Dynasty nuns aren't ornamental. You plant. You weed. You know how to swing a hoe and wrangle a stubborn yam vine without pulling your back. The monastery doesn't just run on sutras, it runs on your labor. And you've come to enjoy the rhythm of it. You arrive at the garden just in time to see Sister Anqing struggling with a squash vine that seems determined to take over an entire terrace. She grunts. You nod. She nods back. That counts as a full conversation around here. You drop to your knees beside a row of eggplants. Their purple skin gleams like lacquer. You start weeding fingers, moving in practiced precision pluck-toss pat-scoot. Dirt gets under your nails. You don't mind. The tools are handmade, some from polished wood, others hammered from irons, salvaged from old carts. Your hoe has a name carved into the handle in shaky calligraphy. Perseverance. A joke, probably. Or maybe a prayer. You find a snail nestled under a leaf and flick it gently into the compost pile. No killing. That's a given. Overhead, a kitebird spirals. Insects hum. A soft wind combs the leaves like a mother smoothing her child's hair. You remember what an older nun once told you? The garden hears your thoughts before your mouth does. And you believe her. Here's the mainstream historical note. During the Tang Dynasty, especially after Empress Wu Zetian's reign, Buddhism flourished. Monasteries and convents expanded. Female monastics, though often less recorded, played significant roles in preserving sutras, educating girls, and tending temple grounds. Historians still argue whether nuns held the same institutional clout as monks, but in daily life, they certainly shared the burden of labor and ritual. You pause to sip from a clay flask. The tea is cold brewed from chrysanthemum and a few sprigs of wild mint you picked last week. That's when you hear it. The bell. Not the main one. The little one. A soft clink from the bamboo grove near the back wall. It means guest. You dust your hands, nod to Sister Anqing, and make your way through the garden path. Butterflies scatter like gossiping nobles. The visitor is a woman in silk. Not rich, more scholarly. Her sleeves are ink-stained. She bows, low palms pressed together. You return the gesture. She's come to copy sutras. This happens often. Literate women, widows, scholars, or simply curious souls come to spend a few days in quiet brushing sacred words onto parchment. You lead her to the scriptorium. Now here's a quirky detail. In many convents, the best calligraphers weren't monks, but nuns. They had finer brush control, some said, and more patience. One Tang-era nun, Jingjing, was so renowned that her hand-copied sutras were used as model scrolls in imperial libraries. You show the visitor to a low table. Set out fresh ink, a brush, a weight stone. No need to explain. She knows what she's doing. You glance at her opening lines. The mind is like the moon in a clear pool. Solid choice. You leave her there, the sound of brush against parchment, as gentle as a moth's wings. Back in the courtyard, laundry flaps in the breeze. Someone singing very softly near the kitchen. Probably Sister Daojian again. Her voice is like creaky floorboards, but sweet. You take a moment to sit under the persimmon tree. Its branches stretch wide, casting a cool circle of shade. You let yourself breathe. Really breathe. Here's a thing you never noticed in your old life back before the robe, and the silence, the way your ribs move when you exhale slowly. Like folding wings, like a door closing gently. You sit there long enough to forget what time it is, which is perfect because time isn't something you watch anymore. It's something you feel, something you fall into like a warm bath or a favorite chant. You blink, you rise. Lunch won't cook itself, and even the most peaceful nun still needs to eat. Steam curls upward from the pot, curling into dragons and question marks, before vanishing into the rafters. You stand with a wooden paddle in one hand and a sense of impending rice doom in the other. Stir too slowly, and it sticks. Stir too fast, and you slosh it. Somehow your spiritual training didn't include much advice on proper porridge technique. Welcome to the Tang Buddhist Nun's kitchen, part shrines, part sauna, part controlled chaos. The hearth crackles, fed with twigs gathered at dawn. Your sandals are dusty, your sleeves rolled to the elbow, and your forehead gleams. You'd look very dignified if you weren't sweating directly into the soup. The midday meal is the largest one in your schedule. After this, you don't eat again, not formally. Just tea, maybe a pickled plum, something small enough that even the strictest Vinaya rules won't raise an eyebrow. It's not starvation. It's simplification. Fewer cravings, fewer distractions. Or so the abbess says. Around you, other sisters move like a practiced dance troupe, silently handing off ladles and stacking bowls, tucking scallions into clay jars. The rhythm is unspoken. Chop, stir, scoop, breathe. Today's menu includes millet congee boiled greens, pickled turnips, and bean curd with sesame. Plus, for the guest scribe, a sliver of preserved plum. It's protocol to offer hospitality, even in humility. You serve without ceremony, placing each wooden bowl on a low tray. Silence settles like mist as everyone sits cross-legged backs, straight heads, gently bowed. A bell chimes once, then chanting. Low and slow, a melodic thread that weaves your voices together into something smoother than language. You barely think about the words anymore. They live in your body. Your tongue simply follows where your breath leads. Mainstream historical note here: Tang-era Buddhist convents often maintained strict monastic codes during meals. Silence, mindfulness, and communal harmony were emphasized. Some abbesses even discouraged eye contact while eating. But historians still argue whether such rules were strictly followed, or if they relaxed during more intimate convent meals, especially in rural communities. Now here's the fringe tidbit. Some convents in the Sichuan region were rumored to season meals with blessings, literal hand gestures, or whispered mantras over the food to aid digestion and calm the mind. One story claims a nun once calmed an upset stomach by chanting over a bowl of noodles until the broth shimmered. You haven't seen that work personally, but hey, worth a try next time. Sister Daojian overdoes the pepper oil. The meal ends with a final bow. Dishes are cleaned without fuss. Water is reused. Nothing wasted. Leftovers go to the stray dog who lives behind the shrine, the one with one ear and a limp. You've named him Bodhisattva. He accepts this with quiet dignity. After lunch, the convent settles into what you call the sun-drowsy hour. The walls feel softer. Even the shadows seem sleepy. Some sisters retreat to their quarters to read or nap. Others tend the shrine's incense or quietly polish the temple bells. You take a broom and begin sweeping the hallway, slow, even strokes. It's not glamorous, but it's grounding. The tiles are cool beneath your bare feet. Your robe rustles like wind through dry grass. That's when the abbess passes by. She's barely 5 feet tall and looks like a dried apricot wrapped in robes. but her gaze could stop a tiger mid-roar. She doesn't speak, just nods once. You nod back. That counts as full approval. Once she's gone, you finish sweeping and return the broom to its hook. Then to the garden again, not for work this time, but for walking. Tang Buddhist nuns often practiced a form of meditative walking. Not the brisk laps of a modern mall walker, but a slow, deliberate shuffle. One breath per step. Eyes half lowered. Noticing the texture of each stone, the way the light moves through leaves, the exact pitch of birdsong overhead. You begin. Step, breath, step. Inhale through your nose. The scent of sandalwood clings to your sleeves. Exhale through your mouth. A small pebble shifts beneath your heel. Someone is shelling beans nearby. You hear the faint pop of pod seams. A cricket chirps from under the porch. You take another step, another breath, and suddenly, for the briefest moment, your mind doesn't race ahead to laundry or evening prayers. It just is, still, present. That's when you realize this isn't just walking. This is where your thoughts dissolve. Not disappear, just unhook like a sash slipping loose. It's peace but not empty. It's full of small things. Of now. Eventually, you reach the far edge of the courtyard where the stone lion sits. His nose is chipped. Someone's tucked a wildflower behind his ear. You smile. You know exactly who did it. You bow to the lion. Then you bow to the sun. Then you turn lightly, gently, and begin walking back. One step, one breath, just like that. You sit now in the scriptorium, or rather, what passes for one in your little convent. A cool shaded room with bamboo blinds and a low wooden table scarred from decades of ink and elbows. Outside, the light has shifted from gold to that soft pale cream that means it's nearly evening. Inside, the only thing that moves is your brush, well, and maybe your mind. Because copying sutras isn't just a chore, it's a mirror. The text doesn't change, but you do. One brush stroke at a time. You dip the fine black bristles into the inkwell, steady your breath, and begin again, a clean line curved and delicate unfurling across the paper, like a reed bending in wind. You whisper the words as you write, not loud, just enough to keep their rhythm intact. Hey, you probably won't survive this if you're the type who checks your phone between thoughts. Here, distraction is considered a form of spiritual pollution. That stray thought about soup you had 2 minutes ago. Yeah, that's attachment. Gotta sweep that out like dust. Sutras are sacred, yes, but they're also long, repetitive, meditative, and sometimes downright sleep-inducing. But the point isn't the content. It's the process, the practice. You're not supposed to analyze. You're supposed to surrender. The Heart Sutra today. A classic. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. The ultimate Buddhist mic drop. Mainstream historical fact, Tang Dynasty Buddhism encouraged textual copying as a form of merit-making. It was believed that transcribing a sutra, especially one of the Mahayana texts, generated good karma. Entire cave temples in Dunhuang are filled with these handwritten scrolls, offerings not of money, but of time. Now here's your quirky tidbit. Some nuns used their own hair as brush bristles. Not always. Just in special cases, vows, rituals, or deep penance. A strange, intimate act of devotion. One strand of self turned into scripture. You're using a goat hair brush. No need to be dramatic today. You shift slightly on your cushion. Your knees pop. The ink smells earthy, iron rich, like blood diluted in tea. You finish a verse and set the sheet aside to dry, careful not to smudge it. A breeze rustles the bamboo. A fly buzzes, once, then thinks better of it. There's no clock on the wall, but you know it's nearly time for evening chants. You tidy up brush in the stand. Inkstone, wiped parchment stacked, and head toward the main hall. The light outside is thinner now, shadow-stitched. The lotus pond reflects everything except the truth. You pass the carved wooden gate and step onto the temple floor, cool and smooth beneath your feet. You take your spot on the mat facing the shrine. Candles flicker, gongs chime. and slowly the chant begins, low and soft. No words at first, just the vowel sounds, stretched like silk. You close your eyes. This is where the real work begins. Let's be clear. Buddhist chanting isn't about hitting notes. It's about vibration, resonance. If you're lucky, you catch a thread of the sound and ride it inward like a raft down a slow river. Tonight's chant is a praise to Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. You let the syllables bloom and fade your voice indistinct from your neighbors until the whole room sounds like a single breath inhaled and never exhaled. Historians still argue whether Tang monastic chants followed a standardized melodic pattern or whether each temple had its own variation. The records are thin. Some suggest that certain nuns added subtle personal flourishes, tone shifts, pauses that echoed the regional dialects of their childhood. You once heard a visiting monk say that your abbess's chant sounded like birdsong wrapped in honey. You didn't know if it was a compliment, but the abbess did not smile. The ritual ends with 3 bows standing, kneeling forehead to floor. You perform each one like clockwork. Graceful, slow, reverent. Your body knows the shape of them better than it knows its own name. And when you rise, silence. That beautiful charged silence that wraps around the walls like a warm shawl. You exit with the others, single file robes rustling like wind through silk banners. Outside, the evening star is up tiny and stubborn against the dusk. There's one more stop before bed. You slip through the garden and toward the back wall where the memorial tablets rest. Little wooden plaques with names and dates, ancestors, teachers. Some are nearly faded to nothing, but someone remembers. You light a small stick of incense, bow 3 times, whisper a few lines of gratitude, then you sit. No reason, no plan, just to be still as the last of the light drains away. A toad croaks from the pond. Somewhere someone drops a ladle. The night air smells like jasmine and wet stone. You breathe, and the breath goes deep, like roots. You're back in your quarters now, if you can call it that. A bare-walled room with just enough space for your mat, your folded robes, and a low wooden chest that smells like cedar and dust. There's no pillow, no mirror, no distractions, just silence, and a bowl of warm barley water you sip slowly, like it's made of secrets. Outside, the crickets have taken over where the chants left off. Their rhythm isn't perfect, but it's sincere. And somehow, that's enough. You pull your robe tighter around your shoulders. The Tang nights get chilly, especially this high up in the hills. The breeze creeps in through the woven screen, like a ghost, gentle but insistent. You're not scared. Ghosts are nothing compared to thoughts. Thoughts linger longer. Tonight's routine ends not with prayer, but with meditation. The deep kind. The kind that feels like dropping a stone into a still pond and waiting for the ripples to explain your life to you. You light a small candle, kneel, and fold into seiza legs tucked back straight, eyes half-lidded. One hand rests inside the other, thumbs barely touching. The mudra of stillness, the gesture of enough. And then you do nothing. Well, not nothing exactly. You breathe. In, out. Like ocean waves you've never seen but remember somehow. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Tang Dynasty Buddhism embraced both seated meditation, Zuo Chan, and chanting as dual paths to enlightenment. Monasteries offered different specializations, you might say. Some emphasized text, others silence. But most, like yours, believed in balance. Now your quirky tidbit. Some nuns reportedly meditated while walking backwards in tight circles to train both memory and spatial awareness. Yes, it looked bizarre. And yes, they sometimes bumped into things. But the point wasn't grace. It was focus. You're not walking tonight. You're rooted. Still. Some nights, your mind drifts immediately to hunger, to old dreams, to the time you tripped carrying tea and soaked the head abbess's robe. She didn't yell. She just said, clean it with the same care you would clean your thoughts. You cried anyway. It's fine. Everyone's robe gets soaked at least once, Historians still argue whether Tang nuns had more freedom than their male counterparts. Some say yes, pointing to the records of nuns managing finances, owning land, even overseeing schools. Others argue their visibility was limited by gender norms, their contributions obscured by the ink-stained priorities of later scribes. But you know the truth lives somewhere in the middle, like the space between two breaths. You come out of meditation slowly, like a diver breaking the surface. Your hands ache a little. Your legs have pins and needles. The candle flickers its last, and you watch it die with something like affection. You sleep on your side, curled up like the curve of the moon outside. And when you wake, it's still dark. Not morning yet. Not quite. But that's the thing about monastic life. Sometimes the deepest peace comes not from sleep, but from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You rise and wrap yourself again. There's something soothing in repetition. The same robe, the same path, the same chill in the air. But today's different, because today you're assigned to the kitchen. Now, if you've ever been a guest at a temple and thought, wow, these vegetarian meals are amazing, allow me to crush that illusion gently. It's not magic. It's sweat, elbow grease, and occasionally prayer aimed directly at a stubborn pot of millet. The kitchen tucked behind the central hall is half stone, half smoke. No fancy hearths here, just open flames, soot-blackened pots, and a wooden prep table perpetually dusted with flour ash or mystery residue. Probably all three. You greet the cook Sister Wei with a bow. She grunts. That's her way of saying good morning. Or possibly, I dreamed of rice again. Hard to tell. Your task today, prepping turnips, which sounds simple, until you realize there are 50 isiki of them, and they need peeling, dicing, and boiling before the morning bell. You roll up your sleeves and get to work. The knife is worn but sharp. The turnips give with a satisfying crunch. You settle into the rhythm slice, rotate, chop. It's not unlike sutra copying, really. Just wetter. Sister Wei mumbles something about salt. You nod as if you understand. She probably doesn't expect you to. Her voice is mostly garlic by now. You toss a handful of scallions into the boiling pot and stir clockwise, always clockwise. The abbess insists it aligns with the Dharma. Now for the historical bit. Food preparation in Tang Buddhist temples followed strict dietary rules. No meat, no eggs, no garlic or onion depending on the sect. Some temples even avoided pungent vegetables, entirely believing they stirred the passions. Quirky footnote. Some nuns secretly grew mint and ginger in rooftop pots. For medicinal use, of course. Also, the abbess occasionally suffers from minty breath. You finish just in time. The morning bell rings, a deep echoing sound that feels like it came from inside your chest. You and Sister Wei serve the bowls onto wooden trays, each paired with rice-pickled greens and barley tea. Then you bow, not just to the food, to the work. Because even chopping vegetables can be a form of prayer. By the time the first spoonful of rice touches your lips, the sun has already begun peeking over the misty hills that cradle the monastery. Pale light creeps across the stone floor, turning soot-streaked walls golden for a few quiet moments. The kitchen's buzz softens. Bowls clink, gently murmured blessings float like steam. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat, with the other's bowl nestled in your hands. There's no talking during the morning meal, just the sound of slurps, soft chewing, and the occasional cough from someone who misjudged the temperature of the millet porridge. You chew slowly, deliberately. Not because you're trying to be mindful, though that's the goal, but because Sister Wei made the rice extra chewy today, and your jaw has questions. Still, it's comforting. There's a kind of rhythm here that doesn't need percussion, just mouths moving in harmony. When the bowls are empty, you rinse yours at the spout behind the temple and set it back in its slot. Each wooden bowl is marked with the nun's name in carefully brushed characters. Yours is faded now, the ink rubbing off with time. That feels right. Today is a chore rotation day. You're assigned to courtyard sweeping, which sounds poetic until you realize it includes not only leaves and fallen petals, but a surprising amount of bird droppings. The monastery's resident sparrows are many things, but respectful of sacred ground is not one of them. Still, you accept the broom from Sister May with a bow and get to work. The bristles are stiff, and the dust stings your eyes. The air smells like pine, and something faintly lemony, probably the monk who washes his robes with citrus peel again. He says it wards off ants, or demons. You forget which. As you sweep, your mind drifts. Here's your historical detail. In Tang, China, Buddhist monasteries weren't just spiritual centers, they were also cultural hubs. Nuns ran schools, managed property, and maintained strict schedules of labor and meditation. Records from the Zanning collection even suggest that some female monastics taught Confucian classics alongside sutras. Multitasking Tang style. Now the quirky bit. At one temple in the outskirts of Chang'an, the head nun once trained a pair of crows to mimic the gong rhythm for meal announcements. It worked for a while until one of them started sounding the lunchtime gong at midnight. The bird was politely retired. The gong was locked up. You finish your sweeping and pause at the base of the central staircase. From this angle, the monastery looks like it grew from the rock itself. Its gray-tiled roofs layered like petals. Its lattice windows filtering light in shifting patterns. You could almost forget the noise of the outside world. Almost. Because even here, news trickles in. Today, you overhear whispers near the laundry basin, rumors from the town below about unrest on the western frontier. Bandits, maybe. Or soldiers moving again. One novice says her uncle saw smoke rising near the border roads. You say nothing. It's not your place to speculate. But you notice the head abbess has been pacing more often. And during yesterday's midday prayer, she paused longer than usual after the line, "Let all beings find stillness, even in times of change." Historians still argue whether Buddhist nuns in the Tang era were truly isolated from politics, or whether they operated as quiet observers of statecraft. Letters from royal patrons and preserved scrolls suggest the latter. Some abbesses advised officials. Others offered sanctuary. One even negotiated a ceasefire, though the scroll doesn't say how. You return your broom to the shed and step back into the main hall. It's time for scriptural copying. Your seat is the third from the window. You prefer it for the light. The paper is thin, the ink dark, the brush just shy of perfection. One bristle always bends left, like it has opinions. You dip it carefully and begin. Thus have I heard. Your strokes are deliberate, measured. Each character is its own breath. You're not allowed to talk during copying, but the rustle of sleeves and scratch of brushes make their own symphony. One novice sneezes, and everyone jumps. The abbess doesn't look up, but her eyebrow twitches slightly. She'll be asking someone to sweep the altar steps again, no doubt. The scroll you're copying is the Vimalakirti Sutra, a favorite among the nuns, not just because it's beautiful, but because it tells the story of a layperson who challenges monks and bodhisattvas with clever questions. There's something satisfying in that, like the universe leaving room for nuance. Halfway through the scroll, you realize your inkstone has dried. You reach for the water jar and nearly knock it over with your sleeve. Classic. No one says anything, but you hear a stifled chuckle from the fourth mat. You refill your stone, dip again, continue. Some characters glide, others resist. You try not to judge them. You remember what the abbess says. A perfect stroke is a moment of compassion made visible. You smile at that, then mess up the next character. Typical, but you keep going. Because this isn't about beauty. It's about mad presence. And in a monastery high above the noise of the empire, copying sutras isn't just a duty. It's a way to hold the world still for a breath longer. You roll up the finished scroll and place it carefully in the cedar box near the altar, nestled beside a dozen others wrapped in cloth and twine. The air here smells of wood and age, like wisdom has been sleeping inside these boxes for centuries, only rousing when someone needs reminding. Outside, the light has shifted. Noon bleeds into afternoon, and shadows begin to stretch their limbs across the courtyard. This is the quietest part of the day, not because it's meant to be, but because the sun sits too heavily on your shoulders to allow for noise. You retreat beneath the shade of the prayer tree, a gnarled pine that leans toward the eastern wall, like it's eavesdropping on the sutras. Beneath its branches, the stones are cool, and the breeze carries the faintest scent of plum blossom. You let your back press against the trunk. Your legs unfold. Time for meditation, which on most days is lovely. On some days, however, it's a bit like trying to hold water with your hands. Thoughts leak, wriggle, form puddles. Today is somewhere in between. You close your eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. Birdsong. Chime clatter in the distance. Someone sneezing again, probably that same novice with seasonal curses. You return to your breath, in and out. This stillness, by the way, isn't unique to your monastery. During the Tang Dynasty, Buddhist meditation halls were found across the empire, some grand and state-sponsored others tucked into caves carved from cliffside stone. Texts like the Platform Sutra emphasized that enlightenment wasn't a reward. It was the uncovering of something already there, like wiping dust from a mirror. You try to remember that now. Wipe the mirror. Breathe. Let your thoughts drift like clouds not gone but seen and then released. That's the goal anyway, until your knee starts aching and your brain starts composing a haiku about cabbage. You don't even like cabbage. Now here's your quirky tidbit. One Tang era nun named Jiwu reportedly meditated for so long beneath a tree that sparrows began nesting in her sleeves. Rather than move, she stayed until the chicks were grown. Whether the story's literal or poetic, no one's sure. But either way, it's a powerful image and mildly itchy. You open your eyes. No sparrows today, just a soft hush in the air, as if the world itself has paused. The bell rings. Time for garden tending. You're on carrot patrol today. You find your way to the edge of the compound, where vegetable beds rise in neat rows. Sister Yun is already there, sleeves rolled up, muttering about bugs with the calm precision of a woman who once exorcised a beetle infestation with a stern chant and a cup of vinegar. You kneel in the dirt fingers, easing around green shoots. The soil is warm, slightly damp, full of scent earth roots, sweat, and the faintest trace of incense blown from the altar nearby. Gardens were essential to monasteries in Tang China, not just for food, but for medicine. Many nuns grew herbs used in poultices and tonics. Records from the Zhushan Temple mention entire healing gardens run by women who doubled as herbalists. You're not sure if your carrots count as healing, but they've certainly helped a few grumpy stomachs over the years. As you work, a bee buzzes past your ear. You pause, watch it hover, land on a stalk of chive, wiggle, lift off. Somewhere nearby, a novice drops a basket. Carrots roll across the path like tiny orange messengers fleeing a boring sermon. You keep weeding. The sun glints off the well. You hear laughter. A crow caws from the wall. There's a piece here that isn't loud. It doesn't declare itself, but you feel it anyway. Historians still argue whether monastic life for women in Tang China was one of empowerment or restriction. Some point to the autonomy nuns had over property and ritual. Others note the social limits placed on female monks compared to their male counterparts. The truth, as always, likely lives somewhere in between. But what you know is this. Right now, kneeling in dirt surrounded by quiet laughter and growing things, you feel powerful. Not in the empire-building, sword-swinging sense, but in the rooted, steady, breath-in, breath-out kind of way. Like if the world turned sideways, this garden would still bloom. You finish your row just as the bell chimes again. Back to the courtyard. The abbess has called for evening sutra recitation. You rinse your hands in the stone basin. Watch the water spiral down the carved channel, like a whispered prayer returning to the mountain. In the gathering hall, mats are unrolled. Lamps are lit. The room flickers with amber light. Shadows curl at the base of the statues like sleeping cats. You kneel again, thighs already sore from the garden, but your heart lighter. The chant begins, low at first, then rising. One voice becomes many. The words, half remembered and half embodied, spill out of you like breath you didn't know you were holding. They say that every chant carries intention, that each syllable threads a strand between this moment and something vast. Maybe it's true. All you know is that as the final note fades, the air feels softer, your heartbeat steadier, your shoulders looser. You press your palms together and bow, because even if you've done it 1,000 times, even if the rhythm never changes, each bow is new, each chant a doorway, and each evening a return to something deeper, to something whole. Evening has settled like silk over the monastery, soft and quiet, stitched in threads of plum twilight and temple incense. You rise from your bow and gather your mat, moving slowly with the others like a tide that knows just where to flow. The ritual is done, but the night is only just beginning. The lanterns outside flicker to life one by one, their glow casting amber halos across the stone paths. A novice jogs past, carrying a tray of tea. She nods at you breathless and a little crooked in her robe. You smile because everyone is a little crooked sometimes. You make your way toward the nuns' quarters, bare quiet but cozy in the way old teacups are cracked a little at the rim, but perfectly shaped for warmth. This is when things slow down again. You change out of your work robe, fold it neatly, slip into the thinner, softer wrap meant for the evening, light a small oil lamp, and place it beside your door. Not for light, for presence. In many Tang-era nunneries, a lamp by the threshold after sundown was a quiet signal I am awake, awed at peace. Enter only if needed. Tonight no one knocks, so you unroll your bedding and sit with your knees tucked beneath you, sipping from a cup of barely sweetened tea. This is your hour of reflection. And honestly, sometimes it's more daydream than dharma. You glance toward the bamboo scroll lying beside your pillow. It's a fragment from a copy of the Heart Sutra you've been memorizing for weeks. The characters are carved so precisely, it almost feels like you could fall into them, tiny doorways etched in ink. You read the opening lines aloud once in a whisper, just loud enough to remind your body that it remembers. And then you let it rest. Because this moment isn't for study, it's for you. You pick up your comb, bamboo smooth passed down from another nun years ago, and begin to untangle your hair. Yes, most of it is shorn short, but what's left still needs care. This is the part of the day that feels most human, most mundane, but also sacred. In Tang China, Buddhist nuns were not required to erase their femininity, despite what later traditions might suggest. They wore simple robes, shaved their heads, lived in humble quarters, but they were also poets, painters, healers. Some were even royal advisors. One of your favorites, the nun Miao Yun, known for writing delicate verses about moonlight-broken teacups and the ache of long silence. Historians still argue whether her work was metaphor or memory, whether her sadness was personal or philosophical. But either way, she makes you feel less alone. Outside your window, a breeze rustles the reeds. A dog barks far off, and somewhere deep in the hills, a temple bell rings 3 times. That one's not yours, it's the Western monastery on the next ridge. But the sound carries, and the sound knows. You set down the comb and rub your palms together, warming them. Then you press them gently over your eyes. The darkness behind your eyelids blooms like ink in water. You breathe. You sit. You wait. And the world holds still until it doesn't. Until a knock comes, gentle, not urgent. You rise, smooth your robe, and answer. It's a junior nun. She looks nervous. You recognize that expression. It's the face of someone about to ask a question she's practiced all evening. I'm trying to remember the part of the Avatamsaka Sutra where the 10 bodhisattvas. You smile and open the door wider. There's always time for this. You motion her inside, light a second lamp, and sit side by side on the floor. Together, you unroll a copy of the sutra well-worn edges, softened by many fingers and years. She points to a passage. You nod. Begin to recite it. She follows. The light flickers across the page, dancing between your voices, and something inside you settles, because this is what it means to live here, to teach, to learn, to recite, to be interrupted gently by curiosity. When the passage is finished, the young nun bows deeply. You bow back. She leaves quietly the way all good questions do, having changed nothing and everything. You extinguish the second lamp and return to your bed. No dreams yet, but you know they're coming. Because this is the hour when the mind loosens its grip, when the body sinks deeper into earth and silence. This is the hour when the teachings grow roots, not in the mind, but in the marrow. Outside, the stars have arrived. They gather like monks around the moon, silent, watchful, patient. And you lie back, arms folded, gaze, soft heart, still humming from the sutra. Historians still debate whether female monastic life in the Tang Dynasty allowed true equality in religious thought, whether women's voices were preserved as sacred or dismissed as sentimental. But in your room in this moment, your voice is strong, your memory is clear, your place is certain. The tea has cooled, the wind is quieter now. Even your thoughts are beginning to bow one by one before slipping into dreams, and your breath, steady and soft, matches the rhythm of the lamplight fading. No need to count it, just follow, just trust. Because the night has work to do. And you, dear listener, you have rest to keep. You don't notice the moment you fall asleep. None of us ever do. But you do notice the moment before it. That feather-light balance between thoughts and nothing, when your body forgets to hold itself upright and your breath decides to stay. But the night in a Tang Buddhist monastery isn't quite finished. Not yet. You wake to the subtle creak of wooden sandals outside your door. Just a whisper of sound, but enough. You sit up slowly, still wrapped in the soft hush of dreams, and slide your feet to the cool stone floor. It's pre-dawn. The sky beyond your window has turned the color of brushed ink, deep and quiet, waiting for its first wash of gold. And even though your eyes are only half open, your body remembers this is the hour of incense. You fold your bedding, light your lamp again, and bow once to the corner where a small statue of Guanyin watches over your cell. The goddess of mercy. Her gaze is always soft, but in this light, she seems especially patient, like she's waiting for you to get to the part where you stop overthinking everything. You smile. It's okay. She's seen worse. You step into the corridor. Other nuns are already gathering robes, whispering as they move feet soft against the flagstones. No one talks. There's no need. The ritual will speak for everyone. You make your way to the incense hall, a narrow, high-ceilinged room lined with worn floor cushions and a single central brazier carved from polished stone. One by one, each nun steps forward, offers a pinch of crushed sandalwood or jasmine or aloes wood. The scent rises in layers, building like a slow-moving river of memory. You take your turn. You pause. You breathe. The smoke curls upward like a finger tracing the shape of a forgotten name. Some mornings you pray here. Other mornings you just listen. Because sometimes the smoke knows. A senior nun strikes a wooden clapper. Once, twice, 3 times. It's time. You sit, hands resting in your lap, and close your eyes. This is zazen, seated meditation. And no, it's not as peaceful as it sounds. At least not right away. Your knees ache. Your back forgets what straight means. A mosquito lands on your elbow and contemplates its options. But slowly, as the incense burns lower and the breeze curls around your ankles, your thoughts begin to space themselves out like stepping stones across a shallow stream. One thought, the color of the tea yesterday. Another, the passage of sutra you still can't remember. Another, whether Guanyin ever gets tired of being kind all the time. But each thought arrives, then passes. And that's the practice. Not escaping, just allowing. Letting the world be what it is without clinging or pushing it away. You lose track of time. That's the goal. When the final clapper sounds again, you're surprised by how light your body feels. Like your bones remembered something you forgot. You rise with the others, step back into the corridor, and now the sun has found you. It pours across the stone steps, soft and gold, pooling against the edges of shadows. A bird calls from the cypress tree near the courtyard. A bowl is filled at the well. Someone laughs, not loud, just enough to let the day know it's welcome. And that's when breakfast begins. You return to the dining hall where steamed rice porridge waits in wide, shallow bowls. You take yours with a sprinkle of pickled radish and a spoonful of sesame paste. Nothing fancy, nothing sweet, but oh, it's good. Partly because you're hungry, mostly because hunger tastes better when it's been earned in silence. You eat slowly with gratitude, with presence. Every grain counts. Across from you, a novice slurps too loudly. She blushes, murmurs an apology. The elder beside her chuckles. Better too loud than too late, she says. You smile into your bowl, because yes, there's formality here, but there's warmth too. The kind of quiet warmth that doesn't need to prove anything. Just like the temple cat, fat, stripe-tailed and smug, who pads and tail flicking to circle your ankles as you sip the last of your tea. He's not supposed to be here, but he always is. And no one stops him. Because sometimes grace arrives on soft paws and does what it pleases. After the meal, you help wash the bowls, stack the mats, sweep the floor. The breeze flows in through the shutters. You can hear the soft clang of bells from a nearby shrine. And then comes the best part of all the moment, when you stand at the threshold, look out across the hilltops and realize that nothing urgent waits for you today. No meetings, no errands, no one to impress, just rhythm, just breath, just the gentle unshouted hum of being part of something larger than yourself. Historians still debate whether Buddhist nunneries in Tang, China were havens of independence or gently gilded cages, whether the women inside had full agency or just the illusion of it, whether their chants shaped kingdoms or simply softened their own edges. But here now, in this sunlit silence, you don't need an answer. You just need the wind. You just need the next breath. You just need the memory of incense and the soft echo of footsteps retreating toward the next part of the day. Because peace isn't just something you practice. It's something you become. And you're already on your way. By now the sun has fully climbed the spine of the eastern sky, and your shadow walks beside you, long and lean, and slowly curling itself into something more human as the day softens. The heat is mellow here, filtered through hanging mulberry leaves and the tiled overhangs of the monastery roofs. You squint slightly, hand raised, to shade your brow, and feel the quiet persistence of the hour. There's no bell. No announcement, but you know what time it is. Copying time. You head to the scriptorium, that long room, lined with paper patience and the faint scent of ink. The door slides open with a soft wooden sigh, and you bow before entering, even if no one else is inside yet. The room is sacred, not because of relics or shrines, but because of what happens here. Here, the Dharma is made visible. You settle onto a woven cushion before your lacquered desk, roll out a fresh scroll, and dip your brush into the inkstone. There's something deeply comforting about the weight of the calligraphy brush, about the ritual of moistening the bristles, pressing them against the edge, watching the pigment pool like a cloud before a storm. The text for today, a portion of the Lotus Sutra. You begin carefully, slowly, not just because neatness counts, but because each character is a kind of meditation. You don't just write the words. You enter them. Ru Shiwa Wen. Thus have I heard. The brush moves with the breath. A stroke, a pause, a turn of the wrist. Somewhere a bee buzzes lazily near the window. You've copied this section before, perhaps dozens of times, but it never feels redundant. There's always a wobble in your line, a new flick in the brush, a deeper meaning in the verse. This, you realize, is how the Dharma survives. Not through grand pronouncements or royal edicts, but through quiet repetition, through ink and fiber and the steady hand of someone who knows they are part of a chain longer than they will ever see the end of. Beside you, another nun enters. She nods, sits, begins her own scroll. No words. Only brushwork, only breath, only now. And here's your quirky historical tidbit. Some Tang nuns added tiny flourishes to their calligraphy. A curl at the end of a line, a subtle lotus blossom pressed into the margin with powdered ink and rice water. Not for vanity, for reverence. They weren't just copying, they were honoring. There's even one scroll preserved in fragments that ends with a small brushstroke heart. Historians still argue whether it was a personal note, an accident, or a hidden joke. But the ink remains. The beat of a long-gone hand, still visible, still speaking. Time passes like ink drying. Eventually, you set your brush aside, roll up the scroll, and store it in a linen wrapper. You stretch your legs. Your knees are grateful. You walk outside and breathe in the noon air, slightly spiced by the temple kitchen, where sesame and scallions dance in an open wok. It's rest hour now. But no one tells you what to do with it. You wander down to the koi pond, where orange and white flashes glide beneath the lily pads. Past the bamboo grove, where a pair of swallows are building a nest from shredded prayer slips. Along the southern wall, where the elder nuns hang laundry sun-bleached robes, fluttering like prayer flags in a breeze that knows where it's going. You pause. You close your eyes. And suddenly, the whole monastery feels like a single breath drawn in, held gently, then let go. This is the slow joy of your life now. You think of who you used to be. A daughter, a merchant's niece, a girl who once chased fireflies and feared marriage more than death. And now you are a rhythm, a bell without a clapper, a name that echoes softly within the silence of sutras. The hours drift. There's no schedule for what comes next, and that's the beauty of it. You might help in the garden. You might stitch another square into the temple banner. You might tend the old nun with the failing eyesight, who tells the same story about a dream she had in 728, where a golden lotus climbed up the moon. You never tire of it, because what she's really saying is, I'm still here, and that's the heartbeat of monastic life. Not achievement, not ambition, but presence. When the shadows lengthen and the bells chime once more, you return to evening meditation. This time you light the lanterns with care. The glow is warm. The room smells of wax and cedar and shared breath. You sit. You chant. The Heart Sutra unfurls from your lips like a song you didn't know you knew. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. And somehow your voice knows where to go. Not loudly, not for anyone, just with everyone. And when the chants fade, when the lights are dimmed, when your feet shuffle softly back to your cell, you realize something. You're not counting the days. You're not worried about where time goes. Because here time is being. And you are here, exactly as you should be. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. Maybe by now you've already drifted off to sleep, and if so, we hope this story brought you peace of mind and helped you rest a little easier. Deep sleep makes life better, and we're truly happy to be part of that. Until next time, sweet dreams.